The lights flickered again aboard the Hyperion as Captain Sarah Chen made her way through the cramped corridors of the aging mining vessel. The ship's ancient metal bones creaked with every micrometeorite impact, each sound a reminder of just how far it had fallen. Once the Hyperion had been part of humanity's prestigious deep space mining fleet. Now it was little more than a floating scrap heap, crewed by those who couldn't afford better or didn't want to be found. Status report, Sarah called out as she entered the bridge, ducking under a hanging bundle of exposed wiring. The bridge crew, all three of them, barely looked up from their antiquated stations. Main reactors holding at 30% capacity, replied Maya Rodriguez, their engineer and currently the only thing keeping the Hyperion's ancient fusion drive from giving up entirely. Any lower, and we'll have to start shutting down non-essential systems. Everything's essential on this boat, grumbled David Nash from his position at sensors. The former military officer had never quite adjusted to civilian life, but his expertise with outdated equipment made him invaluable. Got something weird on the long range, though. Asteroid cluster ahead, but the readings don't match any known composition. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, studying the flickering display. The sensor array might be decades old, but David had modified it to detect trace elements that newer automated systems often missed. How far? 2 hours at current speed. Could be worth checking out. Might be some rare minerals the automated miners missed. Sarah nodded slowly. They needed a big score. The Hyperion's last 3 mining runs had barely covered their fuel costs, and their creditors were getting impatient. Plot a course, but keep us at minimum power. Last thing we need is to blow the reactor before we even get there. As they approached the asteroid cluster, something felt off. The rocks were too perfectly spaced, their orbits too precise to be natural. But the Hyperion sensors showed no energy signatures, no signs of artificial manipulation. I don't like this, muttered Wei Cheng, their pilot, as he guided the ship closer using manual controls. The automated systems had failed months ago. Feels like we're flying into a spider's web. Sarah understood his concern, but they were committed now. Take us in slow. Maya, how's that reactor holding? Down to 25%, but stable. Whatever we're going to do, better do it fast. The first asteroid they approached was roughly cylindrical, its surface pockmarked with what looked like impact craters. But as they got closer, David's modified sensors began picking up something new. Captain, I'm detecting traces of an unknown metal. It's like nothing in our database. The energy signature is minimal, but it's there. Sarah felt a familiar tension in her gut. The same feeling she'd had before everything went wrong on her last military command. Launch a probe. Let's see what we're dealing with. The probe, one of their few remaining pieces of somewhat modern equipment, approached the asteroid's surface. As soon as it made contact, everything changed. A pulse of energy rippled through space, washing over the Hyperion like a wave. Every system on the ship, even the broken ones, suddenly came to life. Displays that hadn't worked in years lit up with strange symbols. The reactor's output jumped to 200%, but instead of overloading, it stabilized at levels that should have been impossible. What the hell? Maya's voice was barely a whisper as she stared at her engineering console. Captain, the reactor, it's not just running better. It's changing. The containment field is reconfiguring itself, but not using any technology I recognize. Before Sarah could respond, David called out from his station, multiple contacts. Something's emerging from the asteroids. The objects that rose from the asteroid field defied description. They were ships, but unlike anything humanity had ever built or encountered. Their hulls seemed to flow like liquid metal, geometric patterns shifting across their surfaces in hypnotic waves. They're scanning us, David reported, his military training keeping his voice steady despite the impossible situation. But they're not using any frequency we should be able to detect. It's like our old sensors are picking up things they shouldn't be capable of seeing. Sarah watched as more ships appeared, surrounding the Hyperion in a perfect formation. She had a choice to make. Try to run with their newly energized engines, or stay and face whatever had just found them. But before she could decide, a voice echoed through the bridge, not through their communication system, but seemingly from the ship itself. It spoke in a language none of them understood, yet somehow they all grasped its meaning. The seed has found fertile ground. The evolution begins. The Hyperion's systems continued to change, old technology merging with something far beyond human understanding. Sarah realized they hadn't discovered the alien artifacts. The artifacts had discovered them, and their obsolete, jury-rigged ship hadn't been a disadvantage at all. It had been exactly what these ancient machines were looking for. Maya Rodriguez hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she couldn't tear herself away from the miracle happening in her engine room. The Hyperion's ancient fusion reactor, once barely able to maintain life support, now hummed with power that shouldn't have been possible. But that wasn't even the strangest part. It's like watching evolution in fast forward, she explained to Captain Chen, who had come down to see the changes for herself. See these conduits. They're restructuring themselves at the molecular level. The metal is learning. Sarah watched as patterns of light rippled through the engine room's walls, following circuits that hadn't existed hours ago. Learning what exactly? Everything. Maya pulled up a diagnostic display, one that had been broken for years, but now showed impossibly detailed schematics. It's taking our crude human technology and perfecting it, but not replacing it. It's like the alien systems are using our old tech as a foundation, building something entirely new. On the bridge, David Nash monitored the alien ships that still surrounded them. They hadn't made any hostile moves, but they hadn't communicated either, at least not in any conventional way. The Hyperion itself seemed to be their messenger. "You need to see this, Captain," he called over the intercom. "Our sensor range just extended by a factor of 10. But instead of using advanced scanning technology, it's like our old electromagnetic sensors have evolved. They're picking up things that should be impossible to detect with such primitive equipment." Wei Cheng, who had been manually piloting the ship for so long he'd forgotten what autopilot felt like, suddenly lifted his hands from the controls. The ship maintained its position perfectly. "It's not taking over," he said, wonder in his voice. "It's enhancing my inputs, like having a neural link, but through these old manual controls. I can feel the ship now, Captain. Really feel it." Sarah returned to the bridge, watching as her crew adapted to their changing vessel. The alien ships continued their silent vigil, their geometric patterns now seemingly synchronized with the evolving patterns on the Hyperion's hull. "David, any luck decoding more of their language?" she asked, settling into her command chair, which now seemed to adjust perfectly to her posture. "Not exactly decoding," he replied, frowning at his display. "It's more like, the ship is teaching us. Every hour we understand more. They're called the architects, Captain. They're not just ships out there. They're seeds, like what's changing us. But they've been dormant, waiting. Waiting for what?" Before David could answer, new symbols flashed across every screen on the bridge. Maya's voice came through the intercom, tense with excitement. "Captain, the reactor just jumped to 400% efficiency. The hull is reinforcing itself, developing layers we don't even have words for. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating." Sarah felt it too. A subtle vibration through the deck plates, a sense of anticipation in the recycled air. The Hyperion wasn't just changing its systems, it was preparing for something. Multiple contacts. David suddenly shouted, "New ships entering the system." But these are different. Their energy signatures are hostile. Through the newly enhanced viewport, Sarah watched as sleek, predatory vessels emerged from warp. Their design was different from the architect's ships, all sharp angles and weapon ports. The newcomers wasted no time with warnings or demands. They opened fire. The first salvo of energy weapons struck the Hyperion's hull and simply disappeared into the evolving patterns. Maya's laughter echoed through the intercom. "Captain, You won't believe this. They're not just weapons. They're energy we can use. The hull is absorbing and repurposing everything they throw at us. The attacking ships launched another barrage, more powerful than the first. This time, Sarah felt the Hyperion respond. The energy from their weapons was caught in the geometric patterns covering the hull, channeled through the evolved systems, and fed into their old fusion reactor, which now pulsed with power that made their previous improvements seem trivial. They're called the purifiers. David translated as more alien symbols scrolled across his screen. They think we're an abomination. The merging of their ancient enemy's technology with primitive human systems. They're here to sterilize us. Sarah felt her ship's response to the threat, not through any advanced neural interface, but through the old, worn captain's chair that had evolved along with everything else. The Hyperion wasn't just a vessel anymore. It was becoming something unique in the galaxy. Not purely human, not purely architect, but something new. Way, do you still have manual control? The pilot grinned, his hands hovering over the physical controls that now interfaced with technologies beyond human comprehension. Better than ever, Captain. This old girl might not be pretty, but she's got some new tricks to show these purifiers. Sarah Chin, captain of what might be the strangest ship in human history, allowed herself a small smile. Then let's show them why they should have left this primitive vessel alone. The Purifier fleet's second wave of attacks came in a dazzling display of advanced weaponry. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and weapons that defied human classification all converged on the Hyperion. But instead of destroying the transformed mining vessel, each impact only made it stronger. Their weapons are based on pure energy manipulation. Maya reported from engineering, her voice filled with wonder. But our old fusion reactor, it's like it was made for this. The crude magnetic containment fields we used, they're perfect for channeling these energy weapons. The more advanced the attack, the harder it is for them to breach our primitive shielding. Sarah watched as geometric patterns of light danced across the Hyperion's hull, absorbing and redistributing the enemy fire. The architect ships remained in their formation, observing but not intervening. This was humanity's test to face alone. Way, show them what we can do with all this extra power, Sarah ordered. The pilot's hands flew across the manual controls, now interfaced with systems that bent physics itself. The Hyperion moved like nothing its size should be capable of. Its old structural reinforcements, designed to withstand asteroid impacts, now perfect for handling maneuvers that would tear a modern ship apart. They're trying to predict our movement patterns, David called out from sensors. But there's nothing predictable about manual piloting. Their targeting computers can't handle human randomness. The Purifier ships, sleek and deadly, spread out in an attack formation that spoke of centuries of tactical evolution. Their next salvo was coordinated perfectly, or would have been, against any normal opponent. But the Hyperion was far from normal now. Captain, Maya's voice carried a note of excitement she couldn't suppress. Remember those old mining charges we never got rid of? The ones too outdated to sell. The ship, it's done something to them. Sarah understood immediately. Way, get us within deployment range. David, find me a weak point in their formation. The Hyperion charged straight at the Purifier fleet, its hull blazing with absorbed energy. The enemy ships adjusted smoothly, their formation shifting to catch the apparently suicidal human vessel in a crossfire. It was exactly what Sarah had hoped for. Now, she ordered. The Hyperion's ancient cargo hold opened, releasing dozens of simple mining charges, explosives that had once been used to break up asteroids. But they weren't simple anymore. The same evolution that had transformed the ship had altered these weapons, turning their crude explosive power into something that interfaced perfectly with the Purifier's own energy shields. The detonation wasn't just an explosion. It was a cascade of technological incompatibility. The Purifier's advanced shields, designed to stop the most sophisticated weapons in the galaxy, had no defense against the hybrid technology. 3 enemy ships disappeared in a flash of light that rippled with geometric patterns. "They're adapting," David warned as new data scrolled across his screen. "The remaining ships are falling back, analyzing what just happened. But there's something else. The architects. They're transmitting data directly into our systems, not just weapons or defenses, but their history." Sarah felt the weight of that history through her evolved command chair. The architects had once ruled this galaxy, their technology so advanced it seemed like magic. But they had fallen, not to the purifiers, but to their own perfection. They had evolved their technology so far that they lost the ability to adapt, to change, to survive the chaos of an expanding universe. "That's why they chose us," she realized. "Our outdated ship, our jury-rigged systems, our reliance on human control rather than automation. We're everything they lost. The perfect balance between technology and instinct." The Purifier fleet regrouped, their ships taking on new configurations. They had learned from their first assault, but so had the Hyperion. More importantly, its human crew was learning too. "They're calling in reinforcements," David reported. "Multiple signatures entering the system. Capital ships, weapons platforms. They're not taking any chances now." Maya's laughter echoed through the ship's communication system. "Good. More power for us to work with. Captain, I figured out how to redirect their energy weapons through our old point defense grid. Those manual targeting systems we never upgraded. Turns out human reaction time plus evolved targeting computers is a pretty nasty combination." Sarah felt a fierce pride in her crew and her ship. The Hyperion had always been considered obsolete, its crew too stubborn or eccentric to serve on modern vessels. Now those very qualities made them the perfect weapon against an enemy that had forgotten the value of imperfection. "All hands," she called out as the reinforced Purifier fleet approached. "Prepare for battle. Let's show them what happens when you corner a primitive species." The Hyperion's hull thrummed with power, its evolved systems singing in harmony with the ancient human technology at its core. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had conquered countless civilizations, but they had something the Purifiers couldn't understand: the perfect fusion of human ingenuity and alien advancement, built on a foundation of outdated technology that had suddenly become the deadliest advantage in the galaxy. The Purifier reinforcements emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry wasps, their advanced ships making the Hyperion look like what it had once been: a mining vessel held together by patches and prayers. But appearances had never been more deceiving. "Counting 37 capital ships," David announced, his modified sensors picking up details that even the Purifier's advanced stealth systems couldn't hide. "They brought planet killers, Captain." Sarah watched the enemy fleet deploy, noting how they moved with mechanical precision. "They still think like machines," she mused. "Maya, what's our power situation?" "That's the beautiful part," the engineer replied, her voice carrying the excitement of discovery. "Remember those old radiation leaks we could never quite fix? Turns out they're perfect for dispersing excess energy. We're not just absorbing their attacks, we're learning from them." The first wave of Purifier ships launched what should have been a killing blow: a coordinated barrage of weapons designed to overwhelm any possible defense. The space around the Hyperion lit up like a new sun being born. Wei's hands danced across the manual controls, guiding their ship through the storm of energy weapons with a grace that no automated system could match. "They're still trying to predict where we'll go," he called out, grinning. "But you can't predict crazy." The Hyperion dove straight into the heart of the Purifier formation. Its evolved hull absorbed their attacks, the energy feeding into systems that had once been considered too primitive to maintain. But those same systems, designed to withstand the crude forces of mining operations, proved perfect for channeling powers beyond human understanding. "Captain," David's voice carried a note of awe. "The architect's data. It's showing us something. The Purifiers, they're not just trying to destroy us. They're afraid of us. We're everything they've spent millennia trying to eliminate from the galaxy." Sarah understood. The Purifiers sought perfection through pure technology, eliminating anything they saw as primitive or chaotic. The Hyperion, with its hybrid of human improvisation and architect evolution, was their worst nightmare made real. Maya, remember those old mining drones we could never get working properly? Already on it, Captain. The engineer's fingers flew across her console, still the original physical buttons and switches, but now interfacing with something far beyond their original design. Their targeting systems were always glitchy, but now that's an advantage. The purifiers can't predict what even we don't know. The Hyperion's cargo bay opened, releasing a swarm of mining drones. Once, they had been simple machines designed to cut through asteroid rock. Now they moved like liquid metal, their crude cutting beams transformed into weapons that ignored the purifiers' advanced shields completely. "They're adapting again," David warned as the enemy fleet shifted formation. "But so are we, Captain. These readings, our old hull, the one we patched so many times. Each patch is evolving differently, creating defenses the purifiers have never seen before." The battle spread across the star system, the Hyperion leading the purifier fleet on a chase that defied conventional space combat tactics. Where they expected calculated maneuvers, they got human intuition enhanced by alien technology. Where they tried to predict patterns, they found only the beautiful chaos of human improvisation. "Their flagship's moving into position," David reported. "Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're planning, it's big." The Purifier flagship was a sight to behold, a vessel that seemed built from pure light and geometry, its weapons capable of rending planets apart. It powered up its main cannon, preparing to unleash devastation on a scale the human crew had never witnessed. But Sarah Chen had learned something about scale recently. Sometimes the smallest things, a mining ship, a stubborn crew, an outdated reactor, could change the course of history. Plot a course straight for their flagship. Maya, dump every bit of power we've absorbed into the old asteroid cracker. The asteroid cracker had been the Hyperion's main mining tool, a focused beam designed to split rocks for easier processing. Like everything else on the ship, it had evolved. But unlike their other weapons, they hadn't tested it yet. There hadn't been a target worthy of the risk. "Captain." Maya's voice shook with either fear or excitement, possibly both. "If we channel this much power through the cracker, I don't know what will happen. We're talking about energy levels that shouldn't be possible in this reality." "Reality," Sarah replied, watching the Purifier flagship grow larger in their viewport, "is about to learn some new tricks. David, make sure you record everything. Humanity should know what their obsolete technology is capable of." The Hyperion charged forward, its evolved hull blazing with absorbed energy, its ancient human core pulsing with power that defied physics itself. They were about to find out exactly what happened when you pushed both human and alien technology far beyond their limits. The Purifiers were about to learn why you should never corner a species that had survived its own chaotic path to the stars. Time seemed to slow as the Hyperion's evolved asteroid cracker powered up. Energy collected from dozens of Purifier attacks coursed through systems that had once been considered too primitive to maintain. The old mining beam, designed for nothing more complex than breaking up rocks, had become something else entirely. "Containment fields at maximum," Maya reported, her voice steady despite the impossible readings on her console. "The reactor's channeling power in ways that, Captain, we're not just using their energy anymore. We're rewriting it." The Purifier flagship's main cannon reached full power, its light drowning out the stars themselves. This was the weapon they used to sterilize worlds, to eliminate civilizations they deemed too primitive to exist. But they had never faced anything like the Hyperion. "Now," Sarah ordered. The asteroid cracker fired. But what emerged wasn't a beam. It was a tear in reality itself, created by the impossible merger of crude human technology and evolved architect systems. The Purifier flagship's energy weapon met this anomaly head-on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. The laws of physics are having an argument, Maya announced with something between terror and glee. And I think we're winning. The tear expanded, geometric patterns from the Hyperion's hull flowing into it like liquid light. The purifier weapon, designed to operate with perfect efficiency, found itself trying to process something that shouldn't exist, the chaotic evolution of primitive technology. Their fleet is responding, David called out, his sensors capturing data that would rewrite humanity's understanding of science. But they're divided. Some are retreating. Others are moving to attack. They don't know what to do. We're outside their protocols. Sarah felt the ship respond to the battle through her evolved command chair. The Hyperion wasn't just a vessel anymore. It had become proof that perfection wasn't the answer. Evolution, change, the beautiful chaos of organic growth. These were the true strengths of the universe. The tear in space continued to grow, swallowing energy from both ships. But where the Purifier flagship fought against the impossible phenomenon, the Hyperion embraced it. Their old systems, designed to handle the unpredictable forces of asteroid mining, proved perfect for channeling powers beyond comprehension. The architects, David suddenly announced, new data flooding his screens. They're transmitting again. This was their final test, not just of us, but of their own choices. Through the evolved systems of the ship, Sarah and her crew received the full truth. The architects hadn't just been searching for a species worthy of their technology. They had been looking for one that could avoid their mistakes. They had pursued perfection until they lost the ability to adapt, setting the stage for the rise of the Purifiers. They wanted someone who could take their knowledge, but not their path. Sarah realized. A species that could merge advanced technology with primitive wisdom. That's why they chose us. Chose this ship. We never stopped adapting. The tear in space reached its critical point. The Purifier flagship, for all its advanced technology, couldn't adapt fast enough. Its perfect systems, designed to handle every possible scenario, found themselves facing the impossible, and failed. The massive vessel began to break apart, its energy weapons sputtering out as the laws of physics reasserted themselves. But it wasn't just a victory over one ship. Through their evolved sensors, the Hyperion's crew watched as the truth of what they represented spread through the Purifier fleet. Some ships fled, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos. Others simply powered down, their artificial intelligences facing a reality that broke their fundamental programming. A few, perhaps the most evolved, began showing signs of change themselves. They're receiving transmissions from the architects, David reported with wonder. The geometric patterns, they're spreading to the Purifier ships that stayed. They're starting to evolve too. The tear in space finally closed, leaving behind a changed region of stars. The Hyperion, once a simple mining vessel crewed by outcasts, had become something unprecedented, a bridge between the primitive and the advanced, proof that perfection was never the goal. Maya, Sarah called to engineering. What's our status? Better than new, the engineer replied proudly. The ship, it's stabilized. The evolution isn't stopping, but it's not trying to become perfect either. It's found a balance, just like us. Sarah looked at her small crew, the humans too stubborn or eccentric to serve on modern ships, who had turned their limitations into strengths. They had done more than survive an impossible battle. They had shown the galaxy a new path forward. Send a message to Earth, she ordered David. Tell them the age of perfection is over. The age of evolution has begun. The Hyperion's hull gleamed with geometric patterns as they set course for home, its crude human core now merged forever with technologies beyond comprehension. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in achieving perfection, but in never stopping the journey of growth and change. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, ancient machines stirred to life, ready to share their knowledge with those wise enough to remain imperfect.